Welcome to NoCode Explorers, the podcast where we relentlessly search for the answer to one singular question: how far can we get without coding? And today we have Tim Brophy. Tim is the co-founder of OneDegree Careers. OneDegree helps people explore, select, and pursue high-paying careers that don't require a college degree. Tim and I had a great conversation, and I'm particularly in love with his mission, which is to grow back the American middle class and reduce misplaced student debt. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Let's check it out. Hey Tim, welcome to NoCode Explorers, man.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. I'm stoked to be here and hopefully help the audience with whatever we can help in sharing.
Definitely. I believe just by sharing your story, by launching a startup, and I know there are fresh news to be shared, and we're gonna get to that. Just that will be great, but we're gonna dig deeper, if you don't mind, talk about how to build things on Bubble, etc., etc. Can you start by telling us about yourself and your company?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Tim Brophy, and I'm the CTO of OneDegree Careers. And we're a startup that helps people find high-paying careers that don't require college. So we call these skilled careers. People typically think of, electricians, plumbers, but it also includes, private pilots, real estate agents, software programming. So my background is in industrial engineering, which is people typically think of as like a technical field, but we really definitely didn't touch any front-end coding. We did a little bit of database work, but not a lot. And I didn't do any of that after I graduated college. So when we found Bubble, one of the competitions we were in, one of the advisors mentioned it, and we needed a way to iterate fast and test and build a platform that our users could actually see and be able to use, and Bubble was it.
Before we get into the building phase, how did you come up with the idea? What's the vision behind OneDegree?
It's a good question. So my co-founder, Gabe, Bensimon, he's our CEO, and he reached out to me when I was working full-time in healthcare, and he had recently gone back to school to get his MBA, which some people find ironic, right? Like going to college and come up with this idea. But really the aha moment was, why is our society here in America and in many other countries, why is it so built around using university as like a career exploration process, right? We graduate high school, and then there's a process of, okay, you go to college, you kind of figure out who you are. But while you're there, you're taking on all this debt. You have to make a decision a lot of times, I'm going to go into business, or, I'm going to do art history. And that decision all of a sudden defines the next 10 years of your life. Yeah. So why are we pushing this on people? Why can't we give them an option to explore careers that maybe don't require college or don't require the college debt that comes with that experience?
Yes. I thought you mentioned that when we were to talk about the vision, because student debt is an issue, right?
It is massive.
We need to address this, and I really love the way you decided to do it. Like, okay, here is the menu. Here are the people who can guide you once you know kind of a little bit about what you like, what you don't like. And then someone can guide you. And then what's the next step on OneDegree? People explore their careers, potential careers that don't require a 4-year degree. Then they talk to someone to guide them, and then
the kind of going back to the vision, it was really aggregating all the information that's out there, because it's not like the information isn't in existence. We're not necessarily creating the information. We're just bringing it all into one place, and then, like you said, Daniel, providing them with what we call a career guide. And after they have that, there's a process of exploration, and then they select their top 2 or 3 careers that are most interesting. Then we help do the research for them on the back end as much as needed, and really provide that helping hand. A lot of times career selection is kind of arbitrary, if you will. Mom says, oh, Daniel, you're great at music. Like, why don't you go into music production? Or in Gabe's case, hey, you're good at math. Like, why don't you be an engineer? So that arbitrary selection, it really defines who we are, and it doesn't need to be arbitrary. But at the end of the day, we provide the research that people need to make an informed decision. And then really that confidence in choosing the right career path and that opportunity to kind of dig into the details of it and what that looks like in the future.
Yeah, and when you think about what you guys envisioned, it feels like a perfect fit for NoCode, because you can do a lot of concierge stuff before you automate things. You can start by generating demand and then creating technology, et cetera, et cetera. How much automation and features did you have on the first MVP?
It's a good question. You're making me think back to the MVP 1.0. Yes. We had I'm trying to remember what they call it. There's a plug with Bubble. I think it's a Tinder stack or Tinder NoCode. Mm-hmm. So that was the main feature that we saw. We're like, okay, we can build around this idea of swiping left or right for careers. And it's kind of a fun way to engage for exploration. And then from there, it was really bringing in some of the data from BLS, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, for all of the careers that are here in the U.S. So it was really simple at the beginning, adding the career guides, we have a Calendly, iframe that's in there now. All these things we were able to kind of iterate based on user feedback and bugs that kind of popped up that we wanted to fix and try to automate. And there's obviously still a lot more that we want to do. But it's cool because Bubble grows with you.
How much of a learning curve did you guys face when starting out with Bubble?
The cool thing about Bubble is that it was the community. I think being able to ask a question and do, if you Google like whatever your question is and then put Bubble at the end, 9 times out of 10 you're going to find an answer on a forum, usually on the Bubble forum, or there's a lot of pioneers out there that are doing like what you're doing, Daniel, like bringing it forward, and that helps a lot. So it was I think the confidence to get started is what's needed most, for sure.
Yeah. I can't help but contrast with what would be needed to start coding instead of with no code. Did you ever try to do it with code or any kind of project with code before? What was your experience around coding?
It's a good question. So I always wanted to get into code, but I never dove deep enough to ever build anything of substance. So really this is me coming at it as like I really don't know anything about coding is a fair way to put it. And then just learning the logic Bubble's cool because it lets you focus on the logic and the flow of how people are going to engage with your app, and then from there it's kind of plug and play, and it figures out the more boring stuff on the back end.
I know since you didn't walk the two paths, but I would love to compare what was your perspective on it. If you had to code instead of use Bubble, how much longer do you think it would take you?
Oh man, that would have it would have been a while.
Would you even go down that path? That maybe it's a better question. Would you do it if you had to code?
Yes, we definitely would have, but it would have taken just to scratch the surface. If you took a boot camp approach, you're going to spend 4 months, 6 months, and that's just the beginning. So the alternative is outsourcing it, but then you don't necessarily have control of it. And that's most important with entrepreneurship, right? To be able to build something, test it, learn from that, and go back and iterate.
Exactly.
Sometimes those iterations are weekly or even every 3 days. So to have to wait for a dev team that's building something, it can take weeks or months.
Yeah, there's the money part as well. You would have to pay a lot for people who have plenty of opportunity. Let's just say that people are competing for developers at the moment. So if you were to outsource, you have to pay, and you wouldn't have the control you have at the beginning. Of course, there are ways to mitigate those things, but nothing beats doing it yourself when you're into it, right? When you decide to do it.
Yeah.
And how long did it take for you since the day you started learning Bubble to the day you launched an MVP?
We started just digging into like wireframing in April 2021, and then we had MVP 1.0 up within 4 weeks. The actual like starting with Bubble to launching was probably about 2.5 weeks.
Beautiful.
So, and we were working at that point, it was part-time, so we weren't even full-time.
It's fast. It was the two of you, Gabe and you?
It was Gabe and myself, yeah.
Both of you worked on Bubble?
No, I mean, we wireframed together, and then I essentially put Bubble together. You can think of it as like UX, and then we would review it, test it, find the bugs. So it was really just me doing the Bubble coding or no coding.
The Bubble development, the visual development.
Exactly.
Since I mentioned visual development, do you see yourself more of a visual person? Did the visual aspect help you when developing your software, or is it just the simplicity of it and the ease that Bubbles brings to the table?
Yeah, it's kind of both. It's both. I think the hardest part of it was the database side. But having the visual part definitely made it easier, because you're almost wireframing, like you're bringing your wireframe to life at the same time that you're essentially coding it. And then the back end with the database was like, okay, how do we look at who's actually registered as a user, or make a change and not delete all the data. So that's the important side. It's
incredible that you in like 2.5 weeks of Bubble coding had an MVP out, which is just amazing, and for
substantial.
Yeah, for non-technical people, and I'm gonna say non-technical in the sense of people who don't code. In the past, it would have taken them months if they were to try and find someone to do it for them or learn how to do it. So it's incredible what we are able to do with NoCode. Not only Bubble, it's your example, but there are so many ways to launch today that it's amazing. It is
amazing. It's a good time to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there will be a new generation of entrepreneurs. I don't know, an order of magnitude bigger in terms of number of entrepreneurs than before because of that, right? Or more, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good way to test your idea. And even if you want to hire a developer, like, you should still try to go the no-code route, because it's going to force you to wireframe, think through the flow, and learn it better so that you can, be deeper on the idea and the concept.
And you can communicate it better as well. I do custom software development for clients, and when we get an MVP that was done, and that's before, let's call it the no-code explosion, the example I'm saying. So when they had a prototype built in Bubble or on Figma or whatever, it helps a lot for us to understand. There's definitely some translation you need to do from what people did and what the code needs to work, but it helps a lot with the communication, right?
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's the equivalent of if somebody's building you a house and you have it all sketched out and you're able to like articulate and point to what you're talking about, it definitely helps.
You might not know the specific way to draw the blueprint, etc., but they will get what you mean, right?
Exactly.
A little bit about the startup journey. What drove you to become an entrepreneur?
It's a combination of wanting to make an impact on the world and getting tired of corporate America.
Yes.
I think it's hard to make an impact and no risk, no reward, essentially. And I mean that from like an impact standpoint. I was working good jobs, program manager or project manager, those kind of like mid-level management jobs, but it's just, you get a salary, you go to work, you go home, and like there's a lack of depth of caring and like really like wanting to help people. I was in healthcare, but like not being a doctor or nurse, like not on the front line. So then, it's a question of like, what am I really doing with my life? So with the entrepreneurship route, it's, even if you're working on a widget, you're like, okay, if this goes well, I'm going to make a lot of money and I can use that to start a foundation, or I can help somebody else. And the learnings that come with it as well are just substantial. Gabe and I have talked about that. He got his MBA, and I got my graduate degree earlier on, but like the learnings that we've had in the last year and a half, it's equal to like, it feels like 10 years of real life. So that's been really fun.
And you've been doing this for about a year and a half, right? Yeah.
We started working on it in early 2020, but obviously there's some issues with that year, and we were working part time. We had our full time jobs still, so we just started full time really about 6 months ago, and the journey the last 6 months has been insane. Like going from burning the boats, of the full-time jobs as kind of a leap of faith right after we figured out Bubble. And then within like 3 weeks, we had investors, and then, raised a pre-seed round within 6 months. And like that, I don't think any of that would have happened without Bubble. And none of that would have really happened without the confidence to just like step out and try it.
But maybe now it's a good time to talk about the pre-seed round, which is the news I mentioned before. You raised, I think it was 250.
250, yeah. 250 with Antler. It's been a crazy journey. They've been amazing. We had applied to different like top tier programs, and we always got pretty far, like to the last rounds. But having the Bubble app, I think, combined with not having the full-time jobs as a security blanket, I think they just saw the passion in what we were doing, and they took a leap of faith. So their program has changed over the last year or so, but essentially it was a 2-month program at the beginning with a little bit of money up front, and then you pitch for the 250K. And the whole thing was culminating to a sprint to like get users and understand them deeply, and just being able to iterate with Bubble was awesome. Not to harp on the Bubble thing, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, but I think we're here to talk about NoCode, and the thing you mentioned just now about probably not being able to raise the seed round if you didn't have the Bubble app, it's huge, right? In the early days, people would raise money with a PowerPoint or anything like that. Nowadays, you need both proof of execution in terms of product and business, and you need some traction to attract investors, or
you definitely do,
or even to hire people to early on, right? People.
Yeah, they need the social proof, right? Like social media traction, and then also the proof of concept. And like you can do it with like Squarespace or duct taping other processes together. But I think the combination of being able to do the no-code application and then the fast iterations by yourself, like that's a really magical culmination of things that comes together. And really the sprint that we came to was us being able to like work with users on an individual basis and like take them through the process of they don't know what to do. Okay, great. Let's get you exploring careers. We'll meet with you. We talk through it, figure out what we're going to help you do research on. Being able to go through that very fast. The Bubble app made it very easy because we were capturing, people signing up, registering, and measuring active users and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And how much traction did you have before the program?
Not a lot. We needed a sense of direction, I think, and having that kind of line in the sand with Antler, like, okay, this is an opportunity to raise this pre-seed. If we do it well, that was really the fire under our butts to get us moving. I think with us, it's a fault of being too corporate and talking about stuff and trying to like minimize risk. And with entrepreneurship, it's a matter of just doing it, just break it, get out there and duct tape it together and make it happen. So, it was having that direction from Antler as a partner was really helpful. and then just being able to move through the process quickly. And we're still running off that process that we built with them over those few months. We've changed it a bit, but it's still running off the Bubble app, and it's working pretty well.
And how much of your day-to-day today is divided between talking to users, doing other parts of the business versus building software?
It's a mixed bag. We wear a lot of hats. It's a hard question. I think there's usually like a full day a week where I'm just looking at the product and like trying to revise it based on users' feedback and any bugs that might have popped up. Most of my day is actually working on the process to support the users, and then actually meeting with the users, hearing what they're having to say. We're actually starting to get a lot of international attention from individual users, which is interesting. Through forums like Reddit, that's where they're hearing about it. But yeah, it's really a mixed bag. And then operational stuff. So I wear like the COO hat a lot, and the CIO hat, and all the different hats that are related to the tech and the product.
I want to go back to the jump you made when you decided to leave your corporate job before you had any security. Walk us through this decision and this transition.
The thought process. So I mean, at that point, Gabe and I had loosely been working on it about a year and a half. The idea, we had, we thought at the time we thought we were going to be working with high schools and high school departments. So we had run a pilot program with about 15 high schools in California. Literally meeting with students over like recorded Zoom calls weekly. So we had started to dig in with what we thought were going to be our users. And we just realized that it was, we could essentially keep working on this part-time probably for the next 2-3 years. And it would take that long to figure it out. Or, we could quit the jobs that we said that we didn't like and take the leap of faith and really jump in. And I guess to add some more color to the background, like we had done, I think 3 or 4 different pitch competitions. One at USC, one was like through Blackstone Techstars. They call it like the Blackstone Techstars Launchpad during the summer. So all these programs that we would always get to like the 7th place or like the 4th place, like never the top, but like close enough that we're like, everyone recognizes the problem, and like we just need to work on the solution more to like refine it. So I think it was just a culmination of, I'd been at my job full time for 7 years, I think, at that point, and Gabe was about to finish his MBA program, and we're just like, if we're gonna do this, like now is the time, because if he goes and gets a new job or I go get a new job, like it's gonna lock us in to corporate America again for 3, 4, or 5 years. But ultimately, for me, like the de-risk factor in having a family and all that stuff was seeing the app that we made, right? This idea go into an actual like visual app that even though it might be slower than an iOS app or not as glamorous, we were able to see it working and like see the vision come alive, and then have people using it. It's like, okay, now it's just a matter of ramping that up and getting more people on the platform.
Do you have money saved enough for living for a while before you raised money? What was the safety net? The safety net.
So I worked part-time. So I stayed on part-time at my what was then full-time employer. So that helped me kind of extend my runway. And I had a little bit of money saved, and then Gabe had a little bit of money saved. And we just said, we got to do this. There's no stopping. And we had, I think the time between giving our notice at work and then finding out that we got like the $15,000 from Antler, which is like the initial money, I think there was like a 2-week gap there or something like that. So it wasn't very long until we found out, like, okay, with a little bit of money, like this is good. It's a good sign.
We have some validation, right? And some and a little bit of runway with the possibility of raising more at the end. And
exactly.
and it happened. So it was
It did.
very,
It did happen.
very nice.
It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. And like now, I mean, we keep saying like the work's just starting, not to be cliche, but it's, it's continuing to push forward and stay focused on the users and not get stuck on building an amazing product that we think is cool, but like getting the users in front of the product. But yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Do you plan to grow the team with this pre-seed round, or just keep the two of you?
Yeah, we're definitely growing the team. We just hired somebody part-time to help with being a career guide. So so Gabe and I are doing that still, but she's also helping because we have enough people coming in now. And then we're like literally I just finished an interview for marketing. So we'll have somebody helping with marketing, and yeah, it's exciting. Being able to grow the team, and when your paycheck, because now we're able to pay ourselves a little bit, like the paycheck says like OneDegree at the top. That's a wild feeling.
One thing that I saw on your LinkedIn profile was you also, and I think Gabe as well, started investment group. I think it's called Silicon Beach Investment Group.
Yes. Yeah, we did. It's Silicon Beach Investment Group. We call it SBIG internally, but it's essentially a group of individuals that came together to form. It's not an angel group technically, but it's an LLC that invests in pre-seed and seed stage startups. So that's been kind of fun being on the VC side of things on a very small scale, but being able to do due diligence and see other entrepreneurs in their journeys. It's inspiring and kind of keeps us on our toes, which has been fun.
Yeah, definitely. And you investing in companies at a similar stage as yours, right?
Yeah, we do. And as of yet, I've not seen a company come through with Bubble, but I hope to see one soon.
Yeah, awesome, man. One thing I like about your story is that there are so many points of the history where you could have spent all your money on developers, or you could have had less runway than you actually did with your safety net if you had to pay a developer. And now that you raised the pre-seed round, and of course, as you mentioned, it's just the start of the journey, you now have more runway as well because you're not paying a full stack developer, etc., etc. Are you going to hire Bubble developers?
That's a good question. We haven't thought about that. We're part of a Viterbi startup garage, which is through USC, and there's a Portco, to use the term I just learned, a portfolio company that does development through AI. So we've been talking with them. So we might go that route. But I honestly didn't know that you could. I mean, it makes sense. You can hire somebody that does Bubble development, and that could be really helpful in the interim.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about, because I'm seeing the emergence of this profession, which is a Bubble developer. Maybe
that's really cool.
You should have Bubble developer at OneDegree as an option for people.
Yeah, I like that. It'd be really helpful, and there's probably 80% of the people that could do it better than I do. So it'd be good to work off each other.
Yeah, but my question was more around if you hire someone to advance your Bubble technology. First of all, you can manage them because you've done it so far.
Right.
And then they probably will be less expensive than regular coders. And my logic for that is, since the learning curve is less steep for no code than for code, more people per year will learn the skill, and thus supply will be bigger than with coding. One last question. Let's say one entrepreneur finds you and ask you for advice about their first step building a no-code product. What would it be?
I think the first step would be doing a search for Bubble apps, just to see the wide spectrum of possibilities and get inspired. Yeah, because it feels daunting until you start looking into it and you're like, wow, you can build so much with no code, and I could build so much with no code. And that's when it clicks. You're like, okay, I'm doing this.
I can do it. Yeah. It's possible, and it's within my reach. And then you just do it. Awesome. This is great advice. It was a great pleasure, and I hope this is just the first of many conversations.
Awesome, Daniel. You have a good one.
You too. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Bye, folks. I hope you got excited to build your own thing with no code after this conversation. And if you want more, please follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming service. I'm Daniel Weinmann, and this was No Code Explorers.